Welcome to Freaky Fauna Friday, where every Friday we take a little time and explore some of the freaks of nature from around the planet we cherish so deeply. So please, jump aboard and let's explore the wilds together. Welcome back to Freaky Fauna Friday. I am the great and peaceful Mr. E.
And I'm Jay, and it feels good to be back on this wonderful Friday.
Hopefully you guys had a great Christmas, which was 2 days ago.
Merry
Took me a
Christmas.
second.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Podcast, time travel, magic.
Magic, time portals.
Mm-hmm. No, hopefully everybody had a good Christmas. Hopefully it was a fun time with family and everybody really enjoyed it. Just remember the reason for the season, everybody.
Right. Hopefully it was one to remember.
One to remember. So we have a Christmas-themed animal that Emily picked out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Any guesses?
Reindeer? It's about the only
Drinking coffee.
Christmas-themed animal I can think of.
No, that's a good guess, though. I mean, to be fair, this one has Christmas in the name.
Oh, well, I guess I don't know.
Now, I thought about the Christmas Island crabs and the Christmas stars and everything like that, but Emily picked a really good one. They're probably the prettiest.
Oh, okay.
The Christmas tree worm.
Christmas tree worm?
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of such a thing.
Well, they exist.
Okay.
The Christmas tree worms. The Christmas tree worm, also scientifically known as Cyobracteus giganteus.
Oh, those guys. Now
Which-
you know.
Is always funny. Now, I always pronounce it giganteus because there's a bunch of animals share that, like Giga.
Right, yeah.
But Gigachitus is another one, like Gigantopithecus or Giganotosaurus.
Right, yeah.
They're both spelled, the beginnings
same.
are spelled the same.
It's the English language. Confusion.
But, Giga just means big. It just means big. These are tube-building worms native to tropical oceans worldwide. Now, the scientific name, it just means big tubed branched worm.
Okay.
These are tiny marine worms, but they're specifically named after the resemblance of spinal fir trees that are prized underwater for, like, anybody in underwater photography. Christmas tree worms are something you want to get pictures of. I'll show you pictures here in a second. They are dazzlingly beautiful. They're very shy, and they can be in really, really big colonies.
Oh, wow.
So they look like they pop up like little Christmas tree lights everywhere.
Oh, okay.
But they're also in aquariums. I know some private aquariums are pretty popular, but they need a lot of stuff. They need a lot of space. But in like big marine aquariums, I think the Georgia Aquarium has a Christmas tree worm display. They're really pretty, and they come in all kinds of colors.
Never seen them. Never
I'll
even
show
heard
you
of
the
them.
first picture. Now, the thing that they're famous for is actually their head.
Okay,
That's their mouth.
Where's their head located?
That's their mouth.
The whole thing
Yeah.
that you're seeing, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the feeding branches we'll talk about. And they live in the tube. They make a little cask tube that they live in underneath.
They're going down the tubes.
Yep. Let's talk about how big these animals are. Christmas tree worms on average about 1.5 inches long.
Oh.
Their radulus, which is their feeding appendages, can be about 1.5 inches in diameter. But due to their minuscule size, they pretty much nobody really knows how much they weigh, and if you try to pull them out, you just kill them.
Okay, so these are little guys.
Yeah, but many don't grow past 1 inch.
Okay.
There are several bigger species, but they're mostly about the inch and a half. Like, I think a big species of these guys, they're going to be like 2 inches.
See, I first, when you said Christmas tree worm, thought it was like these worms that live in pine trees.
Now,
Way off.
Way off.
In the ocean.
The tropical oceans, coral reefs mostly. These worms, so physical characteristics and colors. These worms have 2 crowns protruding from their tube-like bodies. These crowns resemble the Christmas trees, and these are the radulas. These appendages that look like hairs coming out of the worm's spinal brushes. Their crowns are various, all kinds of bright colors. It's all the same species.
Yeah.
They can have blues, greens, reds, pinks, purple.
It's different phenotypes.
Yeah, pretty much. But they can have any color and then mixing of colors.
Okay.
So they're very, very, very brightly colored.
Like what are those flowers? I thought maybe you had them last year. I can't remember. The flowers people always put around the yard, and they'll mix the seeds, and they'll there's purple, there's yellow, there's
Moss roses?
maybe, I don't know. But when you plant them close or whatever, you can get like a hybrid color. They'll mix, and you get all sorts of crazy colors.
There's a bunch of flowers like that, but now with captive breeding, because it's anyways,
much easier. Yes.
One of the cool things, one of the cooler colors. So, like I said, reds, yellows, greens, oranges, that kind of stuff. But blues and whites which blues are very rare in nature.
Yes.
So these are very, very vibrant blues.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they can have some pretty crazy blue. Coral reefs, the blue's a little more common than the rest of the planet, but it's still normally it's a little bit more muted or it's a base color blue. These are like neon blue.
Ain't that odd though? The only place you really find blue in nature, I guess, is in the ocean, and I think in the sky.
Oh yeah,
That's another comparison, huh?
100%. And I think coral reefs, why it's because it's competitive, because a lot of these animals are using colors.
Okay.
And the lower you go in the water column, the less vibrant colors become.
Right.
So like a lot of these fish that we look at in aquariums that are super colorful live deeper.
Okay.
So they're not that colorful to each other in their native environment.
Okay.
They're having to produce such extreme colors
just to stand out
stand out a little bit.
Gotcha.
So when we put them in an aquarium that you can like see, it has 10 foot of water, not 100.
Yeah, it's all lit up.
Yeah, they're very brightly colored. And colors change too. So like if you watch people spearing fish deep, it looks like they're bleeding green because the red light doesn't come down that far. But as you pull them up, they start bleeding red again.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
All right. Since these worms are primarily sedimentary, they lack any specialized appendages necessary for swimming. Unlike their close relatives, the sandbill fan worms, which you've seen. I showed you pictures of fan worms and like feathered worms and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
These are the close cousins to these guys. Christmas tree worms have modified radula called opercularium that secures its hole when it withdrawals into their tube. So they're making like that cask of a hole. So when they dig their hole, they're actually reinforcing the sides of it, almost making a shell.
Okay.
So they're making their own secured home. So even if like someone's trying to get them out, it's not just in a hole.
So the worm lives in the tube.
Yeah, that they make with their own body.
Okay, so the tube is them too?
Kinda.
Yes.
It's not like a physically attached shell.
Okay.
Think of it more like a caterpillar making a cocoon.
Aha. Okay.
But there's still an opening.
Okay.
Or you probably don't know what a caddisfly is, but caddisflies do the same thing. Where they're larvae in the water, they use stuff in the environment. So they'll like tie rocks together and that kind of stuff and make little suits of armor. But it's not really a part of their body.
Right.
But they are making it.
Okay.
The worm's body forms from the larval settle on coral. The coral that they grow on it's actually what they use to form their tubes. The worm's legs and bristles stay in the tube.
Okay.
So like if you've seen bristle worms and that kind of stuff, the feathered worms, they kind of have those, but they get really, really small because they're not using them. And they have about twice as long as the portion of the worm visible from the coral. So that head piece.
Okay.
Lifespan and reproduction. Now, do you want to guess
how old these things
are?
How
long these worms can live?
Oh.
And I'll show you another picture. Everybody, look up these guys because they're really cool.
Well,
these are all the same species on the same piece of coral.
Oh, cool.
And look how different they all look.
Yeah, they're each different. Let's see here. I'm gonna guess it's an extreme. It sounds like so very long or very short.
I'll tell you what, you are right. It's either very long or very short.
I'm gonna go with the short route.
Okay, which is
2 years.
They're very small, so that makes sense.
2 years.
Yeah, so giant squids, that's, their lifespans between 2 and 4 years, we estimate.
Oh, shoot. Well, I'm probably
But no, but it's invertebrate, though. They have some of the fastest growing. Invertebrates normally live fast, die young, kind of,
Oh, okay.
So I could see why you'd say, 2 years is what you said?
What's the answer?
We don't know.
Oh.
But we have found members that are easily 40 years old in unpolluted habitats.
Oh, wow.
But their lifespan has been dramatically cut in half due to bleaching events and coral reefs.
Gotcha. How do they age these things?
They're shells that they make.
Well, what if 1 year's a better year?
It's like trees. You just count the rings.
Well, what if they made double time?
Anyways, no, so they're actually now only living to be about 10.
Oh.
So we're seeing a really, really big dramatic cut in their lifespan. We found shells of some in the coral that may have been 60, 70, and 80 years old. So we think in the 60s when the bleaching events started really popping up, we may have lost whole species of these guys. We've never known it.
Before we started pouring all of our garbage in the ocean?
Yeah. But yeah. And then now they used to not have a ton of predators. Now they have predators because those animals can't find other food sources. So they're turning on these Christmas tree worms.
No.
Yeah. So it's just this collapse of the coral reef systems.
Yeah.
Let's talk about their reproduction. The female worms send eggs. The male sends sperm in the water to reproduce. The gametes come from the abnormal sediments. And these eggs become fertilized apart from the female worm. This reproductive process is called broadcast spawning, so I'll explain it a little better. Basically, they're sedimentary. They can't move.
Right.
So most of these animals are either moon cycle reproductive, tidal reproductive, or temperature reproductive
Okay.
because they can't communicate with each other. Most of the time, they can't see each other. And the ones that are most of the time next to them are siblings.
Yeah, you don't want that.
They're invertebrates. They really don't care. But so let's, I'm not sure which one. I don't know. We really know which one they are. But with broadcast spawners, like let's say it's temperature.
Okay.
So when it's 72 and a quarter degrees exactly, they'll all release their sex cells.
Okay.
So they'll release unfertilized eggs into the water, and the males will release sperm into the water. They'll mix and form gametes or zygotes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the free-swimming larvae will find a piece of coral to land on, and then they'll start their burrowing.
Gotcha.
Once eggs are fertilized, they develop into larvae within 24 hours before they drift as zooplankton for up to 12 days.
So they're very vulnerable right there.
Yeah. I mean, they're just being sucked up by any Hoover vacuum fish that comes by. But they develop into these larvae. Larvae settle on the coral, and they produce a mucus tube at first. That then becomes like hard later.
That's the beginning of their tube.
Yeah, basically the first thing they do when they land, they just make like a mucus bubble around them.
Yeah, protection.
So why does mucus work? A lot of animals use mucus as defense mechanisms in the ocean
Okay.
because they create these enzymes that expand with salt water.
Okay.
So like the hagfish, you ever seen like one hagfish produce gallons? One hagfish
Yeah.
produce gallons of slime.
Right.
They're not that big.
Okay.
So they release the enzyme that makes like glucose chains off of salt water.
So the slime will swell up basically and makes them look bigger.
And well, no, it's a choking hazard. So if any fish are trying to eat them,
okay.
they get clogged in their gills and they choke to death.
Okay.
So there you go. These guys are doing the same thing. The predators are much smaller, but they're still kind of doing the same thing, making this big mucus cocoon around them.
Yeah.
So they can start eating into the coral.
Gotcha. Okay.
Habitat, where do these guys like to live? Christmas tree worm lives in tropical oceans between the Caribbean and Indo-Pacific. They prefer very shallow waters, and this is under 100 feet in depth. Their larval lifespan, the Christmas tree worm will choose a coral to habit. They prefer specific species, including stony and brain corals, which are very common in some reefs. You've seen both.
Yes.
Like if you go into an aquarium,
I know what a brain coral is
they
for
look
sure.
like a brain. I
Yeah.
mean, they're really stone corals aren't as pretty, but they make a like foundational coral for reefs.
Okay.
So they're very, very important.
Right.
But they're not as vibrant. So a lot of times they look like rock,
Yeah.
but they are big living animals.
Like the bloop.
Like the bloop. Well, coral's a living animal, right?
Right.
Okay.
Like the bloop.
Like the bloop. Specific species. The colony density varies between a handful to over 100 worms per coral head. So sometimes they'll have tons and tons of worms on one coral head, depending on the parent worm's size and the coral's health.
Okay.
Because they are burrowing into the coral.
Right.
They're
Anchoring
not
themselves
feeding
in.
really off the coral, but they are digging it into the body
Yeah.
and making like a little cask around them.
I'm sure they don't like that.
Once the larva have selected a coral, it constructs its calcium carbonate tube and remains in permanent home throughout its lifespan. These tubes can develop between 8 and 10 inches in length. And the worm produces these by excreting the calcium carbonate obtained from ingesting sand particles.
Okay. Huh. So it filters out sand and makes its
little tube
out of it. Okay.
That way the coral can't crush it.
Okay.
Since the tube is significantly longer than the worm can fully retract when it feels threatened, and it'll actually crawl to the back of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So once withdrawn, the worm can use its spine operculum to plug the hole on top to defend itself. So it has like a little armored hat.
Right. The
So
part that's normally sticking out and feeding.
That's the inside of the mouth.
Yeah.
It'll suck that back into its mouth.
Yep.
And its head will kind of come down and be like a plug.
And cover the hole.
So what do these guys eat? Here, this picture's pretty good because you can see that little hat at the base.
Oh, yeah. All right. I like the hat.
They got a little hat that is their mouth, that there's their head.
Okay.
What does the Christmas tree worm eat? It eats everything. Calcates, zooplankton, organic detritus, planktonic life, other food particles, pretty much anything that's floating in the water that it can kind of scoop up with those filter feeding. Heavily calcate radius passed through the food into the worm's mouth. The feeding process also goes by filter feeding, since they use these brushes to get microorganisms to eat. So that's pretty much how they feed. They're just out there, and if you watch them, they're gently pulsing the whole time, but they're so small it's hard to see.
Kind of like what was that shrimp you used to have?
A flower shrimp,
Yeah.
bamboo shrimp.
How they kind of.
Yeah, they do the same thing.
Yeah.
Threats and predators. Christmas tree worms do not have many threats to survival. Their population has thrived throughout the world, but threats to coral degradation, a nearby habitat, could lead them to harm. And we think we have lost species of these guys before we start speciating them.
I'm sure we have.
Human threats. Now, these are the big one for them. While they're not subject to commercial fishing like a lot of the other animals we've talked about on this show, they are, however, frantically related to bleaching events in coral. They're very, very popular, though, with underwater divers, photographers, aquariumists, because of their dazzling colors. They may wish to harvest them for the aquarium trade. So they're in some countries, they're actually breaking coral apart to get the worms out for the aquarium trade.
Why they got to do that?
Before, we almost wiped out clownfish because of Finding Nemo.
Oh, people just...
We're going out and netting them for aquariums. A couple companies started breeding them in captivity and fixed that problem.
Okay, and re-releasing them?
Not re-releasing them.
Or just
taking the stress off of the wild caught.
So you don't... Yes, okay.
Because now they're very affordable. Now there's crazy colors of clownfish you can buy in captivity.
Okay.
But your base clownfish is very...
Man,
quote unquote affordable.
All from Finding Nemo?
Yeah, the guy that made Finding Nemo regretted it horribly because he's like...
Wow.
He just picked, he picked some, like, a dory is, a blue tang. And the blue tang were also another one. They're a little bit more open ocean animals. They live adjacent to coral reefs, so they're a little harder to catch.
Mm-hmm.
But clownfish like defend their homes and they live in colonies.
Oh yeah.
So you can sit there and just scoop them up.
Yep.
But yeah, so same thing with these guys. That there is some of these problems are kind of coming out. Since Christmas tree worms are shy, divers will often wait for them to come out. And patient individuals may disturb them to get a better view. So that's another thing is people are banging on coral to get them to open
knock,
up.
Knock, who's in there? That's the last thing they're going to do is come out.
Yeah, mostly pollution damage to their habitat is their biggest thing. Like I said, we've seen their lifespan in some populations being shortened up to a fourth of its original lifespan. So that'd be, humans living to be 70, it'd be you dying at 20.
All right, yeah.
Or a little younger. That's
just puts, things in
very dramatic.
Perspective.
Like, that's a very dramatic population shift.
Take advantage of every day.
Also, if the diver disturbs their environment, it could harm the worms. For the most part, these worms live healthy and long lives if divers do not pursue and disturb them. So like I already mentioned, this the ocean, the ocean problems are a really, really big damage on them right now.
Yeah.
Coral beach, like if their coral dies, they die. Marine worms can live independently of their reef. If it dies, sometimes they will spend time looking for something else to inhabit. They do not have limbs necessarily for an active life. Like they just have their little crawler things. So if their coral dies, they'll kind of have to jump ship and before they get eaten, try to make it something else.
Okay.
No, it doesn't really work. Some reports, though, have suggested they can live on giant sea clams.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
And then
what do they do? What do they do though when the sea clam opens and the bubble comes out so you can get air?
There you go. No, these are drilling into their shells. They're maybe killing these giant sea clams.
Oh, I bet they are. Yeah,
which live to be 4,000 or 5,000 years old.
Yeah.
So it's not great.
No.
Because when they jump ship, they are probably causing more harm just because they're trying to find something
to anchor into and eat into.
Christmas tree worm. Other threats. Christmas tree worms respond quickly to disturbances by retracting their tubes. They will withdraw if they sense a shadow, light, touching, motion, anything like that to protect themselves with their spiny operculum. They will remain withdrawn until the perceived danger has passed. However, they often lose appendages by fish biting them when they withdraw. So they'll get their little feeding appendages bit off.
Yep. But I'm sure they regrow them, right?
Kinda. It's not like a full regeneration.
Okay.
Like some animals can.
Just seems like one of the animals.
Like a lot of times you see the whole tips missing on a lot of these guys. So it just they can kind of repair. It's not like a full regeneration.
Yeah.
Yes, no kind of deal.
Okay.
They can regenerate it to an extent, but
they're not like an axolotl.
No. Conservation status. So this is a hard one. There's no conservation efforts in place for these animals right now.
Okay.
So the conservation status is NA. It doesn't have one. Not because we've talked about this before. There's two different types of conservation status for NA. They're stable, or you don't have to worry about them.
What's NA mean again?
Not applicable.
Okay, not applicable. Okay.
So with these guys, it's because nobody's doing any active work with them. So nobody knows.
Right.
Well, right now, the couple of the people, the Coral Reef Conservation Act of 2000, gave the National Ocean NOAA. NOAA's the one that's kind of doing the life surveys on them right now a little bit and finding out, In the 40s, these guys were living to be in their 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Now they're living to be 20 if they're lucky.
Right. Yeah.
So in less than 100 years, their lifespan's been cut to a fourth.
Yeah, that's not good.
And then there's also NOAA's special group, the Coral Reef Conservation Program, is looking into these guys. But there's no dedicated body for
The Christmas tree worms.
or
Yeah.
bristle worms in general. And they are very, very important. The whole group of them, they're like tons and tons of varieties and shapes. And for everything from predators, I mean, everybody knows the bobbit worm is a close cousin. But to these big filter feeders, but their larva makes up the base of a lot of animals feeding.
Okay.
Because they broadcast spawners. So
Yeah.
they renutrify the water by just making billions of eggs.
Right.
It-
Billions and
billions.
billions.
So yeah,
Carl Sagan.
we don't know.
So-
We really don't know.
There's a lot of room. What you're saying, there's an open niche for any biologist that wants to get out there and study these Christmas tree worms.
Also, if you're an aspiring aquatic biologist, if you want to work here in the States, most states are still looking for a head crayfish biologist.
There you go.
Nobody wants to do it, and it makes no sense to me. I wasn't that good at IDing them,
Yeah.
but I almost went for a job for it.
Oh, okay.
It was for
Because
Indiana.
they were so desperate for.
Yeah, because it pays well. It
Yeah.
pays well, and it's a cool job. I love
Shoot,
I
I
love
ac-
crayfish,
Maybe I could do that.
but a couple of the rare species, you just got to get better at IDing them. And I never applied for it because I just didn't feel I was good enough to like my ID skills.
Maybe that's where my niche is.
There you go.
IDing crayfish.
They have characteristics when you really start looking at the species of them.
Oh yeah,
Like red sides are easy.
for sure.
Rusty crays.
You just count around the scales around.
Do you even know where they're?
No, they're vent.
anuses?
They're vent.
I think they have an actual anus
Oh, okay. No, I don't.
at the very base of their tail. You can watch poop come out.
Oh, great. I probably eat that on lobsters and
Yeah, that's that vein.
yeah.
It's not vein.
Yum.
It's their guts.
Yummy.
All right, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
Freaky Fauna is just slowly getting longer and longer.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of freaky animals out in the world.
I think
and
last week's was like 32 minutes. I didn't realize it.
they need their shine.
So fun facts. I just got to rapid fire a couple of them for you. I thought you were laughing. Despite being beautifully crowned, their colorful radulas filter tiny animals and plants for feeding, and they pump water through them. These plumes trap prey with their sticky mucus and cilia. So the little feather-like
Right, yeah.
appendages, they're actually sticky.
They're like the sticky bandits
They're sticky bandits.
of the ocean.
The wet Band-Aids.
Wet band-aids.
Home Alone.
Well, yeah.
The
Well,
robbers.
the second one, remember, they were the sticky bandits.
I just remember the first one.
They were the wet bandits, and then became the sticky.
No, they were the wet Band-Aids. Because remember, he always left a wet Band-Aid because he's like, what are you doing? And he's getting a Band-Aid wet in the sink.
I
think I'm right.
I think you're not.
I think I just watched this recently.
I think you're making up
We'll look it
plot
up.
points.
We'll look it up. Okay. Next, the words hide up to 2/3 of their body while they're feeding in their calcium tubes, but their whole body only measures 1.5 in length. But their tubes can be up to 10 inches long.
Right.
So they're drilling into a living animal
Yeah.
and making these tubes. That is a good
On
way
top
to,
of them.
Yeah, well, it is a good way to estimate their age because it takes X years to drill.
Okay.
And then and seal it, and then they'll reopen it when they're ready to start digging again.
Hmm.
Because the corals want to try to grow back.
Right. Yeah.
It's an animal, so it's they're fighting. Next, the Christmas tree worms are picky about their coral homes. Scientists speculate that the coral species aids in reproduction and affects fewer predators. So we don't really know this yet, but just from the amount of what appears to be selectivity with what they grow on.
Okay.
That we think that these certain species of coral may be very, very important for reproduction or predators.
Okay.
They're
One or the
picking
other.
them specifically for a reason.
Right. We just don't know exactly what
Yeah,
yet.
good guesses at this point,
Speculative biology.
because some corals are really good at pumping water.
Okay.
And even some sponges, like barrel sponges. Have you ever seen them put dye around the base of them?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you don't realize how much water
They're
that
moving.
animal's pumping through itself.
Yeah.
Christmas tree worms eat and breathe through the same hole.
Oh.
Or the same organ, the radulas. These crowns only catch food. They shift them. They move them straight up and down in their mouth. And they also harness oxygen. They act as gills for them.
Wow. One-stop shop.
While many invertebrates reproduce asexually, these guys do have males and females. They're not hermaphroditic. They broadcast spawn, though, meaning they fire their gametes into the water and hope for the best.
That's all you can do.
So, last one. While they typically live in coral, these worms occasionally have been found to burrow into giant clams. They stay in one home throughout their lifespan unless their host dies or is severely damaged. There you go. The Christmas tree worm.
Oh, wow.
I highly suggest people look up the pictures of these guys. It's like our third one in a row that's really pretty, I think.
Yeah, maybe draw a picture of one. I'd like to see someone draw a picture of a Christmas tree worm.
I want to see one decorated. Somebody taking their time to decorate an inch and a half worm.
Yeah, with
that's really shy.
Tiny lights and baubles. Oh, that'd be nice.
Little ornaments.
Yeah, then it slams into its hole and just kills itself from getting ripped apart by all the ornaments.
The tinsel.
Yeah, the tinsel, the lights, the baubles, the Bigfoot ornaments. Which, you have one on your tree?
Yeah, several.
All right, so you should.
Like several, actually. Just got one a couple days ago.
I think I've only got one. I got a turtle, though.
Yeah.
Turtle ornament. Yeah.
All right. Merry Christmas, guys. I know it's after Christmas, but Merry Christmas is still before for us.
Right, yeah. Merry Christmas. Enjoy your Christmas weekend. You know, it is Friday after all.
Spend time with some family. Remember the reason for the season. God loves you. We love you. Just relax. I know for some people, the holiday Christmas can be a rough time.
Right.
Just remember, we love you.
Yes.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Freaky Fauna Friday. If you want to help the podcast grow, remember to share and give it a 5-star review.